Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Get on my hat and get to this first question. Alright, I saw a recent video of yours talking about doing a total body workout every day, doing just one set per movement, alternating between 8 to 10 reps one day and 15 reps the next day back and forth. How many exercises per workout, and what does that one set include a warm-up set? All right, good question. And this wasn't me writing a routine. I wasn't giving you guys a routine that I've written. It was someone else asking about a pro bodybuilder who had a type of training. And I said, honestly, it wouldn't be that bad if you run it the way he kind of has it written out. As far as that goes, how many exercises? I don't know. How many exercises do you need to work each muscle group in your body? Now, when he's saying one exercise per body part, that doesn't mean you do a compound and an isolation for every body part. That would probably mean you pick a few really good compounds, and then whatever muscle groups need a little more work or have an angle or something that needs work, you probably throw in an isolation movement there. Honestly, it might not require any isolation. It might require 3 or 4 different isolation movements. So I would say your exercise range for something like that would be somewhere between the 5 at the minimum. I think you need a minimum of 5 well-rounded compounds to even work your entire body. That's baseline, and not everybody's going to be able to get it done on that. I have lists on that already, up to about somewhere between 8 and 10 exercises at the absolute threshold. And again, when you start talking about doing 9 or 10 different exercises, you are definitely throwing in some various isolation work because you have multiple weak points. Maybe guys who are trying to do a little more bodybuilding style training, or who consider themselves bodybuilders or physique oriented individuals, might do as many as 9 or 10 because they might feel like something like the long head of their tricep needs more work. Maybe their side delt needs more work. They might have 3 or 4 different areas they need to isolate, even though they're on a bunch of very efficient compounds. As far as warm-ups go, this is controversial, but I'm generally of the opinion that if you're doing any weight that is 70% or less of your 1 rep max, you shouldn't really need to warm up. If you do need to warm up, you lack mobility and have some issues you need to work on. But that being said, there's nothing wrong with doing a warm-up set for an 8 to 10 rep set. I don't see any problem with that. If that's what you want to do, it may not be necessary for everyone. Me personally, I would never warm up before doing an 8 to 10 rep set. 15, definitely not, because most people's warm-up weights are less than a 15 rep max. For most exercises, and you really shouldn't need a warm-up. Your warm-up is the first 5 to 10 reps on a 15 rep set, because honestly, you're probably not even reaching upper threshold muscle fibers till the 10th set. You're using a warm-up weight and you're warming up with it on the first few reps. So 15 rep sets, no, I can't imagine anyone even advocating a warm-up for that. That's absurd. But on the 8 to 10s, it depends on individual mobility, depends on individual joint health, individual connective tissue health. Yeah, you might want a warm-up set before an 8 to 10 rep set. Me personally, I don't warm up with weights that light. I'm going to train that light, I don't bother. I don't warm up for accumulation work either. Meaning if I'm doing a bunch of moderately heavy triples, I just go right to my work sets. That's me personally. Like I said, different people have different views on that, and if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you feel like that's dangerous for you, then by all means do a warm-up. So hopefully that answers the question there as far as that goes. But I did a separate video on that guy's training method. If you guys want to know more, it's all there in the video. And it's quite a long, extensive one. All right, next question. Have you ever heard of bone conditioning for martial arts? Yes, I have. I've been doing it for some time now. The whole point is to strengthen your forearms, knuckles, and shin bones and deaden the nerves by hitting them against wood, metal, stone to fortify your punches, blocks, kicks, making them more effective, and in turn feeling little to no pain when executing them eventually. I was wondering if you knew about any reason why this would be bad for someone to do, any long-term negative effects. Yeah, I've absolutely heard of this. I know many martial artists out there I've met over the many years who absolutely believe in this. And I know one variation of it was called the Shaolin Iron Body Technique. So it has actually evolved even in Kung Fu with the Shaolin. And that usually involved them hitting and punching open-handed, closed-handed into piles of sand, and then eventually grabbled into really sharp gravel. And so what a lot of that does, it builds up scar tissue, it builds up calcification on bones, and it deadens nerves. And yeah, it is going to make you be able to have a more solid punch, hit, whatever, because again, you've got, technically, if you've increased bone density, because that's a lot of what that does, you're putting little tiny stress factors all through bones, like weightlifting does. But to a more pronounced degree, that will over time force your body to put more calcium and magnesium in there. You are making the bones harder and denser. All right, that is going to give you a more effective hit when that bone hits something. Of course it is. And the deadening of the nerves means it's not going to hurt you as much. So yeah, a lot of martial artists do incorporate that in their training. As far as long-term health effects or problems, well, you are deadening nerves. So if you deaden nerves in your forearms, your shins, your knuckles, things like that, that could have some nerve issues later in life. Is it guaranteed? No. Do I know of anyone personally who's had specific health problems with that, who's practiced those sort of methods incorporated into martial arts training? No. But maybe that would be something to ask a specialist about, ask a neurologist about, because again, you are deadening nerves. As far as other things go, your concerns are going to be like with anything else in your body. When you are subjecting it to chronic stress, you need to not overdo it, because what will happen, you can actually break bones doing some of that stuff, because you are creating little microfractures in your bones. Again, just like you do with weightlifting, but more pronounced and more localized. You are creating little cracks in the bones, and it increases density by giving them time to heal, recover, and fill that in with more minerals, more calcium, more magnesium. You do run the risk of fractures. And if you don't heal those fractures properly because they're not reset correctly, maybe little minor breaks, yeah, it could cause you pain later. It can cause extra scar tissue, all sorts of little problems. So be aware of that. Just like with anything else, there's a progressive overload component. You need to do these things and give yourself time to recover from them so that you can adapt. All right, next question. Hi Jason, in a recent video you have spoken again on your strength standards on the big list for those finishing your novice program. I was just curious what your expected numbers could be for the overhead press and bent over row for those at this stage. Thanks. All right guys, you need to remember my strength standards are very specific, because some people will be like, well, I couldn't hit that. My strength standards are for people who are average height or taller. An average height, I'm assuming 5'6" or more. If you're shorter than that, due to strength to weight ratios and everything else there, you're not going to quite hit my standards unless you're just very genetically gifted on strength. We are talking about healthy young men who don't have massive stressors in life that are going to interfere with training and adaptation. All right, and by healthy, meaning you have no major medical issues. Any major medical issue is going to set back adaptation to training. It is going to slow down gains in performance, gains in muscle mass. That's just the way it is. And generally assuming you're between about ages 18 to 35. That's usually the thing. Not saying 40-year-olds can't hit those same standards in that time frame, but they have a reduced chance. Medical issues have a reduced chance. People who have to work a lot of hours or a stressful job, it is going to go a little slower. So put that in perspective there, that it doesn't mean everyone who runs the program. As far as the overhead press goes, one plate aside. One plate aside would be my standard there, just like it's 2 plates aside on the bench press. Being able to do 5 strict standing overhead presses off the chest, all the way down and all the way up, full range of motion, I think for people finishing the novice program, 135 pounds, 1 plate aside for 5 reps is a reasonable strength standard. Some people would say that it should be higher than that, but no, I think that's pretty fair. If they train their bench hard, that should be the ratio. It's just that people who focus a lot on the overhead pressing oftentimes have overhead presses that aren't as far apart from their bench press. A novice who's only doing overhead press every 4 days or so, they're not focusing on their overhead press. So I think that's a more reasonable ratio. As far as rows go, you can't predict that, because rowing is so dependent upon things like limb length, how much you're cheating. You know, how bad you cheat on the exercise matters a lot on rows. Are you doing a strict pen lay row, or are you doing a sloppy cheat standing row? If you're doing a sloppy row standing, it should equal at least your bench press. If it's a pen lay row, I would expect it to be closer to 80% of the bench press. And I think that would be a more reasonable strength standard there. All right, next question. Could you elaborate on single and dual factor recovery models and the possible applications and pros and cons of each? Wow, that's not something I can cover in a Q&A very quickly. A single factor recovery model means that you train one training session, you give your body enough time to 100% recover, adapt, and grow from it before you train either your body or that particular body part or exercise again, depending upon how you look at it. So it is you train, recover, adapt, grow. Single factor recovery. That's often what the concept behind a body part split is based upon. They want to train, they're not worried about systematic recovery, they're worried about localized recovery. So in that case, they would train their lower body with a leg day, squats, all of that, let it recover completely, grow and adapt and be completely done at 100% recovery before they train it again. Whereas in dual factor recovery models, you're more concerned about accumulating fatigue over time. It's about weekly workloads, weekly tonnage, even monthly workloads and tonnage, in which you train again before you are recovered. Even Bulgarian lifestyle training is based very much on that. You are absolutely not recovered every time you come in and hit a max from the previous workout. That's why you worked at 90%. Dual factor recovery is about accumulating fatigue that you do not recover from, sometimes for weeks or months at a time. And then when you continue to increase and ramp up and you almost exceed completely your overall recovery ability, then you back off. And when you back off, you adapt massively, you grow, you make all the adaptations and you repeat the process. But dual factor recovery models, you are not recovered by the time you train again. You are not fully recovered. You continue to train in an unrecovered, slightly fatigued state so that you can accumulate large volumes of tonnage and fatigue over a period of time in which you choose to recover from it at a later date, either during a backing off period or during a deload. Pros and cons of each. It's simpler to follow a single model. Almost impossible to overtrain on single factor recovery. The downside, you're going to gain less muscle and less strength. That's the downside. Dual factor recovery is more complicated. You generally have to train a little harder. You have a much higher probability, much higher probability of reaching an overtrained state. But the upside, you will generally gain muscle and strength at a fairly faster rate, significantly faster rate than using a single factor recovery model. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.